Welcome back to the Wallet Monkey channel. In this video, we're going to talk about FICO scores and some intricacies within the modeling process that I think are going to hugely benefit those that are maybe in the low 700s that are looking to get beyond 750 and build themselves up into the 800 credit score. So this is a credit score tactic that I think is going to be absolutely killer for you. Let's dive into it. Okay, so this is building upon some training that we shot recently. Hopefully that'll be on the channel by the time you're watching this video. We'll go ahead and cue card it for you. But this is essentially a workshop that myself and Revan Group dove into. I didn't even think it was gonna be, we were gonna explore this deeply, the FICO models themselves, but this is a very common issue, question, or thing that people run into when they're building out their scores is now we're in the low 700s to mid 700s. How do we build above that, right? And so what are the pieces that actually matter? And so we can bust out our FICO pie chart again. And what you'll notice is that payment history, which is 35%, and we've got length of credit history, which is 15%. 50% of my score is between those two things. Now, here's what's interesting is that most people think that payment history and average age of account are the same thing. They're not. Payment history is the history that you've got with that account. Now, that applies to open accounts, that applies to closed accounts. That payment history is just the history of my payments. Now, that is hugely important, which is why it's 35% of the score. That's why we don't want to be late. And if we get a late payment, we want to fight like hell to get that thing removed, reversed, good notes added to our account, you name it, right? And length of credit history is actually your average age of account, and that's 15%. So when we notice that people are maybe getting low introductory limits, they're getting the highest APR that maybe a credit union offers or a bank offers, like we're on the high end of the interest rate amount, these are tall tale signs that our average age of account is probably coming into play, or something else on the credit profile is not right. So it's either going to be average age of account or utilization. That's the funny thing, is those two are the largest hinges. That's, they're the small hinges that swing the big doors, right? And I don't think enough people give enough attention to this. So it's like if I'm dissecting a credit score or a credit profile and I'm trying to figure out like how do we get this thing bumped up, or what are the quick hacks that I can refine this credit profile to get in position to do an app spree, that's what I'm looking at. I'm actually looking at only two things. Obviously making sure that, little things are in order, which I'll cover in just a second, but the big ones that I'm looking at is what's the average age of account? And what's interesting is that below 2 years is brutal. And so that's gonna cause a lot of issues in terms of like your approval abilities, as well as what limits you're gonna get and what APR you're gonna get. That comes into play there. But over 4 years, after I get over that, it's really like 2.5 years. Because if you look, and Revan Group brought this up, is on the business side, what's most important to a bank is 2 years in business. Because that first 12 months to 24 months, I don't even know, 80-90% of businesses fail in the first 2 years, right? What's that statistic, right? So we look at that heavily on the business side, banks do, right? And so on the personal side, it's kind of the same thing. It's like that 2-year mark is really huge. 4 years is great though. 4 years is like the next tip over, it seems like. Whereas 4 years average age of account, not payment history, is where like the next big lever is, right? And you can have payment history, by the way, of like 6 years plus, but if your average age of account is like 2 years, because you keep going out like every 6 months or 12 months and getting 1 to 2 new accounts because they were layups, Jay, and yes, I was pre-approved and you don't understand they were easy to get, or I wanted them fill in a blank reason. If we keep doing that, our average age of account could look really bad in comparison to our payment history. Like you could have a 6-year payment history, but a 2.5-year average age of account. That's gonna cause problems. That's gonna keep you stuck too in probably low 700s, 720s, 730s, right? So anyways, easiest one to look at, going back to my core point, was utilization. So amounts owed is 30% of the credit pie. So if our utilization though is between 1 and 3%, and I'm still getting low approvals, or I'm getting denied, or I'm getting asked for extra documentation, then it's almost guaranteed that I already know the average age of account doesn't look that good. See how that works? So it's like the lowest hanging fruit is utilization. Boom, get that paid down, and then you're gonna notice a huge score difference. I'll give you an example that I dealt with personally. It's like I dropped all the way down into the 680s when I put heavy spend on across about $100,000 credit portfolio. As soon as I paid that off, I jumped up to an 820. So it's like, come on, do the math on that. So the utilization aspect is huge, by the way. So that's our low hanging fruit, okay? The next biggest piece that I'm telling you people get really mixed up on and messed up on is average age of accounts. And so, yeah, that's the next thing that I will usually look at. So I want to cover an open loop from previous, is that what other like easy things do I look for to clean up a credit profile when you're trying to get app spree? Another big one that I look at is just to make sure that names are matching. We got only 1 or 2 addresses. They're also known as, on your credit profiles, can create confusion with automated ID verification systems, okay? Because they're getting those alternate names from the third-party verification. They're getting those from the second-tier bureaus, from the garbage bureaus that are going up and picking up all this extra data from data brokers. So if that's now getting reported up the line, up the chain to your CRAs, the 3 main CRAs, and what that tells me is that you've got, multiple names being used, and we don't want that because it stops ID theft as well as this is an easy way to trip a ID verification verification algo or whatever automated system, and now we're trapped in the loop of having to provide more information, more documentation, and that's an easy slippery slope for them to, oh, hey, by the way, why don't you just send us some more bank statements, or send us more of this, or send us more of that. So to avoid that, clean up the profile, get it thinned down to just one name, one address, if you can, 2 address maximum, and make sure that that information is the same there and it's matching across all my bank accounts, all my credit card accounts that I've already got set up. We've covered this ad nausea in the credit apps free videos, and it's still relevant just as much today as it was a couple years ago when I shot those videos. But anyways, back to it is, so those are the little pieces that swing big doors, right? Is that we're looking at 30% just in utilization on the FICO pie chart, and then the other 50% is payment history, which, look, I'm gonna assume that, you know, your payment history at 35%, I'm gonna assume that we're good there, especially if you're in the, you know, low 700s already. You might have a late payment from like 3 to 5 years ago, and that's fine, don't worry about that. But the other piece of it is that average age of account. So you just gotta be mindful, man, like the pre-approval offers, the, you know, accepting, you know, anything that is in your account and that they're giving you like this layup, I guess. The best way to say it is like all these layups that you're getting offered throughout the year, which is gonna start happening as you build out and diversify. So as I get into these credit unions, you know, DCUs, the BCUs, the Navy Feds, we're gonna start to get auto approvals with exact APR amounts. And so if anything, use that as a gauge to see what they're gonna offer you, especially on Navy Fed. It's a really good gauge and a really good indicator to see what kind of, if we're at the high end of the APR, you can actually expect probably a lower credit limit approval rate. Not always the case, but a lot of times it is. And so those are the things that we're looking at. And that's the missing piece that a lot of guys get mixed up on, is that when we're in that, you know, 720 to, I would even argue 750 range, is that the thing that they're, you know, looking past, essentially their average age of account, which accounts for 15% of the credit profile, swings a lot bigger of a door than you realize. Credit mix is 10%, new credit is 10%. So the new credit is that fluctuation that we see. Sometimes the score goes up 5-10 points, sometimes it drops 5-10 points. Credit mix is also another semi-important thing. I always compare this to the census data. I'm just like, look, man, based on what your age is like everyone else around your age doing those same things, you know, getting into a house, you know, 2 cars, 2 kids, 1 dog, you know, whatever, married, mortgage, you know, car loans, auto loans at that point, right? They're using that to a degree, I think, in the automated process to just kind of match you up against the rest of the pool of people to see what kind of stuff you've got in comparison to everybody else. Because let's face it, at 40 to have no mortgage, that is weird. To like never have had a mortgage on your credit profile. Now, I'm not saying you got it and you paid it off. Good for you, that's great. But to like never have one on your credit profile will start to become a factor, right? They'll start to maybe scrutinize another area like your deposits or something more so than they would have. Especially with where we're at right now, we're still in 5% interest rate territory, which by the time you're watching this video, hopefully that's come down. We are also scheduled to cut at, you know, I think most FOMAC meetings that are gonna occur over the next probably 12 months. And I think what they'll do is they did a massive cut and they'll slowly bring us in a quarter point now every single time over the next 12 months to try and slow down the bleeding and the fallout that's occurred. But all of that affects how the banks have to behave. You know, they are squeezed themselves and they're required to hold more in deposits, and they're gonna pass that on to, you know, the people that they're customers, right? And clients. So anyways, I just wanted to kind of add some of the way that I dissect credit profiles when I'm looking to do app sprees and these little lesser known pieces that come into mix and come into play, right? There's a lot more I could go into here, but this video hopefully will stack nicely on top of the hour-long conversation and masterclass that I had with Revenue Group, and as well as build on and bolt on to the rest of the training that we've got on this channel. I mean, we give a lot here on the channel, and it's really just because we recognize that there is a lot of bad information that's been put out over the years. There's a lot of misnomers and I guess just bad assumptions that a lot of people trying to build credit have still. Credit in America, it's one of the few places that offers it the way it does. The system itself can be abused. Yes, we see that right, left, and center. It's not perfect. Yes, that being said, there's not a single credit system like this in the world that exists. And I say that so much because I really want you guys to understand is I've traveled the world and there's not another credit system that exists like it. It is a tool that can literally propel you into creating your own legacy and to create monumental amounts of wealth for you and your family. That cannot be passed up. That should not be passed up. We should be digging into that as deeply as we can and learning how to master this thing so that we can then go and get the benefit of it to, you know, live our own version of the American dream or whatever it is that you're going for. But anyways, rant over. Thank you so much for tuning into the channel. Thank you so much for the support over the years. Onward and upwards, right? We're going to keep doing what we're doing every single week now. We're putting in time, putting in the videos, hundreds of videos on the channel, and it's all for you guys to benefit. So please get locked in and stay locked in to this material and change your life, right? Comment below if you got something to say, you want to share some feedback, you know, you name it, video ideas for upcoming videos. And that's it. Be on the lookout. More videos coming soon. See ya. Hey, you should subscribe. 60% of you are not subscribed yet. Right there. Okay, bye.